What is up, you guys, and welcome back to another episode of Brluminati, the podcast where we drink beer and talk about conspiracy theories. My name is John.
And this is Jake.
And welcome back. So today we are going to be talking about celebrity worship and its effect on
everybody.
Yeah, on everybody.
Brain stems.
Well, I think we're also going to push it a little further from just the general what is the deal with celebrity worship and push a little bit into the mental health effects, right? So we're going to tie it back to our first two episodes where we talked very heavily about mental health. And this is going to be focused too on not only the mental health of people worshiping celebrities, but what it's like from the other side.
Both sides,
the mental health of celebrities being worshipped.
Absolutely. And a little bit of history of celebrity, where that came from, how it started.
Yeah. Some like Julius Caesar shit or something.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But before we jump into that and start talking about, celebrity worship and everything that comes along with that, as always, let's talk about some beer. So, Jake, what are you drinking?
All right. So I went with a brewery I have never heard of before, which I found at my local bottle shop, Pharmacy. Big fan of Pharmacy. And this is a double IPA called Back Off War Child, which, do you know what movie that's from?
No.
Point Break. So War Child is Anthony Kiedis from Red Hot Chili Peppers in Point Break. And
yeah. The original.
The fist is him punching Keanu Reeves from the original Point Break.
Oh man.
That's where this comes from.
The original Point Break is a legendary movie.
One of the best movies of all time.
It always reminds me of I don't know. I make such weird connections when it comes to stuff like this.
I'm here for it.
You know the movie Hot Fuzz?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. With Simon Pegg and what's his name?
Blanking, but go for it.
Yeah. Anyway, there's the fat buddy cop. I can never remember that actor's name, which sucks because he's such a great actor and he's been in tons of good shit.
Nick Frost.
Yeah. Yes. Nick Frost. God, I feel so
he's
bad
amazing.
For Nick Frost right now. But
he doesn't feel bad for you. Don't worry about it.
Probably not. But in that movie, his character is so funny because he's always asking Simon Pegg's character if he knows about movies, and he talks about Bad Boys 2, Bad Boys and Bad Boys 2.
Yeah. It's been a while since I've seen that. Yeah.
Right. But there's this one part where he doesn't name Point Break, but he does say to Simon Pegg's character, he's like, have you ever jumped through the air and fallen on your back and then turned around and shot your gun in the air and yelled, ah? And then Simon Pegg's character is like, no, I've never jumped through the air and shot my gun and then rolled on my back and shot my gun in the air and yelled, ah.
Amazing.
But that's that's that scene of Keanu Reeves where he's chasing Patrick Swayze's character and they're going through that whole
Johnny Utah, his knee gives out.
Yep. He jumps off of the drainage ditch thing.
Yeah, it's the LA River. He jumps down into it.
Is that a river? Because it's this big concrete.
That is the LA River. Yeah, it's a gigantic concrete drainage ditch. They call it the LA River though. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So he's chaining him and he jumps off the drainage ditch thing. And Keanu Reeves' character hurts his knee. And then Patrick Swayze's character gets to the other side, climbs the fence, turns around and looks at him. And Keanu Reeves' character looks at him and he's just like, I can't shoot you. We're too good of friends. And then then Patrick Swayze's character gets away. And then Keanu Reeves turns around and shoots his gun in the air and goes, ah. Yeah. And then I always think about that scene.
That's the moment when he realizes it's actually Patrick Swayze, I think, is a minute before, a little bit before that. Yeah.
Yeah. But I always think about that scene. When I think about Point Break and I never think about Anthony Caceres' character or any of the other minor. I don't even think
Flea's in it. And
Flea was that having Red Hot Chili Peppers in movies was such a huge thing at that time because there was another movie with
Charlie Sheen.
Yep, it had Charlie Sheen and it had the girl from I think it was the girl from Happy Gilmore?
I think so. And Flea drove a gigantic monster truck.
Bronco.
Yeah.
And he flipped it on the highway and stuff. Yeah, The Chase.
Yes.
It was that movie. Yeah. That's a great movie. Where they drive that 90s red BMW and then the girl falls in love with Charlie Sheen's character and all that stuff.
What a 90s moment that was. Yeah.
I know.
My favorite scene of Point Break is when they're on stakeout and he sends Keanu Reeves to get him sandwiches, and he's like, Utah, give me two. And that's like,
was that Gary Busey?
Yeah, Gary Busey, man. Gary Busey's the best. He's so crazy.
Did you know that Gary Busey has a new TV show?
No, but I want to watch it immediately.
You guys are not going to believe this shit. So Gary Busey's new, quote unquote, new TV show.
Yeah.
He is the pet judge.
What?
Yeah. It's
like people having disputes with their pets?
It's like a courtroom show.
Wow.
Where Gary Busey is the judge. What? And it's pet court.
What is this airing on? Where did you find this?
I don't know.
What?
I don't know.
This sounds like something I came up on with like a fever dream while on Metamucil or something. Like, what is this?
I don't know. I just know Gary Busey has a show where he is the pet judge.
Okay.
And it's like pet court. Anyway, what else about your beer?
I like it. It's a little strong. Like it a lot of double IPAs when they get kind of hazy-ish, they don't have like that kick in the back end.
Yeah, they get kind of just sort of like skunky, and syrupy almost kind of.
This definitely like doesn't have that. So it's definitely enjoyable. These guys are from down in Charleston, I believe. Yeah, Charleston, South Carolina. So we're kind of last episode we went to Minnesota, and now we're going south. I like it. I would love to see. I've heard of Revelry before, but I haven't seen any of their stuff in stores anywhere.
Yeah. I can't say I've heard of them before, and I love Charleston. I used to go down there a lot. I haven't been down there in years, but I mean, non-COVID, it's one of my favorite spots to go. So,
really?
I would love to like head down there, check out some breweries. You know what I mean? I haven't really been down there.
How far is that from here?
It's almost exactly 4 hours.
Oh, it's not too bad.
Yeah, it's not bad at all.
We'll do that. Non-COVID, we'll go down there.
Oh, hell yes.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm into it. I would drink one of these. I'd drink a couple of them. They're pretty tasty. I'd love to see what else they're doing just based on this.
Okay.
The tongue-in-cheek bag off war child with no explanation at all. I mean, just waves and a fist with some blood on it.
You'd have to know the...
You would have to, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's funny because when I was buying this, I held it up to the guy who was behind the counter and I go, haha, war child. And he just like...
stared at you like he had no idea.
Yeah. He's like, sure.
I would have had no clue either.
Yeah.
I would have been like, sick.
And I'm like, I'll walk my 42-year-old self out of this building and not think about this again. You know?
Nice.
So, yeah. All right. So you are drinking something that looks like the oil that came out of the bottom of my car when I first bought it.
100%. So what I am drinking is not typical for me. This beer has been in my fridge
for a while.
I have been putting off drinking this beer for I honestly don't know how long. And
is this something I brought over a long time ago, or have you had this?
No, I think I like randomly saw it and was like, "Ooh, all right."
It looks like a pharmacy tag.
Like, yeah, I think so. And unfortunately, the pharmacy tag is like half over the name of this beer. So, it's on the side. Not so bad. But so what I am drinking is a beer called Something So Sincere 2020, which we are now in 2021. But it is an imperial stout. It is named on the front as a chocolate churro stout. And it is a beer brewed with cocoa nibs, vanilla, cinnamon, and sea salt. And it is brewed by Casita Brewing Company from Wilson, North Carolina, which Wilson is maybe 30 minutes or so east of Raleigh. And basically, I don't know anything about Wilson except there's some people I don't like who are from there and a metric fuck ton of all of the cats that my wife's cat rescues come from that area. So this can is 1 pint like usual. It's just a normal aluminum can with a stick-on sticker on it, and it's the front of it. It's weird. So it's like a brown on the side of the label with like a weird kind of khaki tan, and then there's this big red circle in the middle, and it says Something So Sincere 2020, and then there's 5 cartoon churros in the middle of it.
Those are definitely churros.
Yeah. And then it doesn't really give like a description of what it's supposed to taste like other than that it's a chocolate churro stout. It's 11% ABV. And if I didn't know the ABV, I would have known this shit was heavy from the second I poured it out because it poured like straight up fucking syrup. I mean, this shit is black. There is no seeing through this. It is so dark. Even the bubbles are like the color of hot chocolate.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Extremely dark, extremely heavy, extremely syrupy.
It's La Brea tar pit level.
It is full on La Brea tar pit. But when I first took a sip of it and I shared a little bit of it that was left in the bottom of the can with Jake, it hits your mouth and you're just like, oh,
yeah.
All right. I was expecting something that was going to like full on Rochambeau me with like booze.
No, not even.
And remotely, there is not a super heavy booziness to this like I would expect out of an Imperial Stout.
Yeah. Like maybe if they would have like bourbon barrel aged this or something, which wouldn't be unusual for something like this. But it sits really well with what it is.
Yeah. And the more it quote unquote heats up.
Yeah.
I'm definitely getting more like complexity in the flavor out of it, which I mean, I've probably had this out of the can 30 minutes and it's 45 degrees in my garage right now. So fairly ideal temperature, but I mean, this beer is still much colder. Than 45 degrees. I don't feel like I get a lot of cinnamon. I don't feel like I get a lot of sea salt.
Yeah.
So
I didn't get any salt out of it.
I'm really, really kind of missing where the churro part is in this.
Yeah. Maybe if it warms up a bit more.
Yeah. I mean, if they just said it was like a black and white stout.
Yeah. Or like a dark chocolate stout. Like it very much has like a German chocolate cake kind of stout feeling to it.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely don't get any like brown sugar or any coconut or anything like that out of it. But I mean, there's very clearly a fuck ton of chocolate in this. And I wouldn't say it's like a chocolate stout too, because with the vanilla and the cinnamon and the sea salt, it takes a little bit of that like chocolate 40-ishness out of it. Like you can definitely get some of that, not really vanilla, but you can just tell that this is like chocolate, but it's not a chocolate stout. There's something else in it, but it's not churro-y. Like there's no bread to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's like when I smell it, it definitely has that very stouty kind of smell to it, but you can tell that it's more of like a sweeter, heavier kind of smell. And then when I taste it, I mean, I can just, as the warmer it gets, the more I can get some of that sea salt, but I'm not getting any cinnamon.
Yeah.
Very little of the vanilla. It's like if you made a beer out of like 99% cacao dark chocolate. That's what I get.
Which I love.
So it's that very like not sweet chocolate.
Right.
You know what I mean? That almost like bitter chocolate.
Yeah.
This tastes just like extremely bitter chocolate base. Like a bar of super high cacao.
Yeah.
Chocolate bar.
Which I'm very into. Like, would you... Yeah. Does this make it appealing? Would you want a second one of these? Or is this kind of like, Because I know this isn't your jam. So,
yeah, I mean, but I do really like chocolate stouts. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not big into like oatmeal stouts or milk stouts or some of that other weird stuff. But when it comes to like chocolate stouts, I'm very flexible.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like my number one favorite chocolate stout is Samuel Smith's organic chocolate stout, but that's because it basically tastes like chocolate milk beer.
Oh, yeah.
And I love the fuck out of it. Even when I think about chocolate milk, like there's something to be said about dark chocolate milk. You know what I mean? Like when I go to Caribou and I'm like, I want a Voltaire. And they're like, well, what kind of chocolate do you want in it? I like have to have a debate with myself. Do I want milk or do I want dark? You know what I mean? And to me, it's like Samuel Smith's organic chocolate stout is like the milk chocolate stout.
Yeah.
And this is the dark chocolate stout.
Yeah. See, for me, there's no debate. I would go dark every time.
Yeah. I see. I always
don't like
want to
milk
go
chocolate.
milk. Like, so we have an espresso and we make lattes every single morning. And my wife already had a thing of Hershey's special dark chocolate syrup in our fridge. And I was like, fuck that. I need the milk chocolate syrup to make my fancy pants ass latte every morning. But yeah, like
liberal.
I would absolutely drink this beer again.
Yeah.
I would not drink more than one in a row.
Oh, well, yeah.
You
That's
know,
you wouldn't be able to make it upstairs.
By the time we get to the end of this episode, I'm gonna be fucking crushed.
I would have to carry you up to the second floor.
But yeah, I mean, I don't see the churro. I feel like that's a little bit misleading.
Yeah.
But if you would like a really tasty, like I would say this is very tasty. It's very drinkable. It's not overly boozy.
They make a few really good stouts.
Yeah. Have you had these guys before?
I have. I had something from them before, and I'm blanking on what it was, but it was a dark stout with some vanilla in it or something, and I remember it being very good.
Yeah. Yeah, like I mean, this to me is probably it's probably the best and most drinkable stout I've had.
Okay.
In a while. And I mean, that's probably not really including the 4 stouts that we've had recently from Trophy.
Oh, yeah.
Because like the horchata stout and the Milky Way, they're just a totally different realm from
different animal.
But if you like a really heavy, really syrupy type, very dense flavor, but still like a tad bit sweet kind of stouts.
This is it.
Yeah. I would not count on the cinnamon or the sea salt or the vanilla.
Yeah.
If you go into this not thinking it's going to be a churro stout, but thinking it's going to be like
if you just ignore the entire labeling experience of this beer.
Yeah, they should have just put a big 99% on the front of this.
Sure.
And then been like dark chocolate AF.
Yeah. Like that Trader Joe's 99% cacao chocolate bar.
Yes.
97%.
Basically, if you took Trader Joe's 99% dark chocolate cacao chocolate bar and turned it into a beer, this is it.
All right. Fair enough.
So if you go into this thinking that and not churro, you will be extremely satisfied.
Yeah. And I like both. So, I mean, I would like to taste it if it was a churro.
Yeah. and I think that's the only thing to me that's a little bit of a letdown.
Like a little off-putting. Yeah.
Is like, I wish this had just said dark chocolate.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I wanted it to be much more churro-y.
Yeah. I mean, they probably dumped a bunch of cinnamon in it and expected it to carry through, and it just didn't.
Yeah.
So it happens.
Yeah, but I feel like they should have renamed it at the end. But I guess with the FDA and ATF and stuff, they can't really do that. They have to register recipes ahead of time and all that kind of shit. So they probably came up the recipe and goes, this is going to be a churro stout. Registered it with them, made it, and then was like, well, this doesn't taste anything like a fucking churro. I guess
I wish I knew more about that whole process. We should like do an episode on that whole process.
I had to do it for the vape company that I own.
Really?
It's a metric fucking pain in the dick.
Okay.
It's horrible. Trying to deal with them is horrible.
We should do that. Like, I'll go over to like Bond Brothers and interview one of the guys there and like ask him about it or something.
Yeah, we should do the same thing.
That'd be interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Let's do Trophy.
Like these FDA fucks showed up at my house one time.
Really?
Yeah.
Like because of vape?
Yeah.
And you're just like, look at my dope clouds. And they're like, that doesn't work. You have to actually talk to us.
I had to show them proof that I'd sold my company.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. No, but yeah, no, they're a bunch of dickheads and it super sucks. And like, I feel bad for any company or any industry that has to go either through ATF or through the FDA because it's trash.
I'm sure. Yeah.
It's really horrible. This whole labeling and registering your products thing.
Yeah.
And it's a terrible, time consuming, expensive, and very not forgiving process. Like if these guys had been able to come back and renamed this something else, they probably would have. But by the time they got this through the FDA, they were probably locked into this labeling and this name and everything. And they couldn't go back. They couldn't change it if they wanted to.
I don't know if it's still this way, but like beer companies, you used to have to like, there was like one guy in the government who approved labels for beer bottles. And this is like a whole thing. There was an article, and I think it was in the Atlantic years ago, And it was like, there's one dude, one old guy. I doubt it's like this.
There's got to be more
15 years
because
ago,
with every brewery releasing new shit.
Yeah,
I mean,
this was like 15, 20 years ago. And every label had to go through this one dude. And he always had like nitpicky BS to like deal with. And there was like a response where people started doing like blank labels and like all this weird stuff,
Yeah, there was this whole movement that came out for a while called white labeling.
Yeah.
And that was a thing. And basically it was to get through the FDA, they would basically just make this blank white label with a blank slate of all the shit they wanted on it. And then they would just stamp the name of whatever it was on it. And so there was no branding really. It was just like white label, all the info, and it was a government shit. It didn't have anything to do. You know what I mean?
Crazy.
And yeah. And so it's tough here because it's like every time you guys go out to the bottle shop or you go to a brewery and they just released a new special edition beer, you guys probably get excited of what it is or not excited because you're not interested in that beer. But what you don't see is in the background, there was weeks, if not months, of developing the label, getting it, submitting the recipe to the FDA, getting the label approved, getting the recipe approved, all of this shit. And then they can finally come back and put a can in your hand. It's dumb.
Goofy. Yep. But the beer's good.
Yep. Very good. I would go back.
All
right. So
let's jump ahead.
Let's go ahead. So celebrity worship. We're in the church of
celebrity.
Yeah.
Celebritos.
Yeah. I imagine myself like looking at the album cover to that Enter Shikari album where it has that giant neon cross on the front.
Yep.
And I'm just like, this is the church of metal.
Who do you think was like the first celebrity you really kind of connected with?
Connected in what way?
Because you thought was the coolest, like that you were like kind of enamored with.
Oh man, I hate when you ask me these kind of questions.
Yeah, but you got to answer.
Okay, so I'm gonna say from an action movies perspective, probably Bruce Willis, and the first actress that I was super in love with was Julia Roberts.
Those are pretty solid answers. That's pretty awesome. Where did Julia Roberts come from? What movie?
Pretty Woman.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, that makes sense.
It doesn't matter how mature Julia Roberts gets. She looks like what's her name from Pretty Woman to me.
Yeah.
She will always look like that to me, always and forever.
Fair.
Hottest actress in the world, period.
And Bruce Willis is pretty solid too. I mean, obviously.
Absolutely. Because he was
like a real action hero.
I mean, I'm an 80s baby. So it's like, you think about the movies that were coming out at the time.
Yeah.
I mean, there was definitely a little bit of like Michael Keaton going on with like the Batman and stuff like that.
I think that was mine.
But there was a lot more of like Die Hard and, maybe like some Harrison Ford probably too with like the Indiana Jones, the Star Wars, the... he did all those like weird mid-90s movies where it was like Air Force One and you know what I mean, like all those weird movies.
Han Solo, I think Bruce Willis was probably mine because, like in a big way, because I remember watching Moonlighting with my parents.
With Cher.
Was it? No, it wasn't Cher, was it? Like, no, it was like...
There was an episode of Moonlighting that he did with Cher where it was...
I believe she was
basically a modern... it was like a modern rendition of Taming of the Shrew, the Shakespeare play.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there was a Moonlighting episode my parents had recorded on VHS. It was Bruce Willis and Cher.
That's awesome.
Before Bruce Willis, he was like... I want to say I remember people... Before Bruce Willis got into Die Hard...
Right.
And there's a whole documentary about this. It's very funny. So before Bruce Willis got into Die Hard, he was the guy on Moonlighting.
Yeah.
And Moonlighting was like made for TV Lifetime chick flicks.
It's like him and Sybil Shepherd, and they were doing like romantic detective work.
And it was all this like romantic, good boy, hot underwear type stuff.
It was those novels that were blowing up at the time.
Yep.
Too. Yeah.
And nobody wanted Bruce Willis for John McClane, and nobody wanted Alan Rickman for Hans
Yeah.
Gruber.
I could see that. I mean,
Because
he wasn't really a known person at the time.
Well, he wasn't. He'd never done anything filmed. Alan Rickman was purely stage.
Yeah.
So it was weird. This movie came out, in the late 80s or whatever it was, at the same time as stuff like Skyscraper and all that kind of stuff was coming out. These the buildings on fire type movies. You know what I mean? They were like this like real life horror almost kind of situation. And then all of a sudden this movie came out with this, you're putting the pretty face underwear guy from Moonlighting and this no-name Broadway stage guy as the leads in this weird cop takes on a, terrorist bank heist building movie. What?
Right.
And then it's Die Hard, to us now we're like, it's fucking Die Hard. This movie rocks. You know what I mean? But like at the time it was very confusing to people. They didn't know what to do with it.
So according to Mental Floss magazine, the first person who was given dibs at the role of John McClane was Frank Sinatra.
He turned it down, I think, if I recall. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously he did because Bruce Willis.
He was like 50, 60.
73.
He was like, at the time.
Bizarre. Could you imagine Frank Sinatra? Like, I mean, that'd probably be cool.
Being John McClane at like 70.
Yeah, but he's like 73. He's supposed to have like a little kid. Like what?
I have a machine gun now.
Right.
Ho, 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 ho.
Yeah. And then apparently the offer went to like Schwarzenegger and Stallone before it hit Bruce Willis.
Yeah. Cause they were going after this like traditional action movie. Cause like at the time it was a lot of like Rocky and Total Recall.
Yeah.
And all that kind of stuff. They wanted like an action guy.
Yeah.
That's who the
of course.
The studio was like, action guys, get me the big muscly guy, the big thing. And then the producers like, no, we want to do a different kind of action movie. And they almost
Sinatra.
The movie almost got shut down because of it.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, here we are a million years later, and it's the biggest Christmas movie ever. So
yeah, it's true.
And I don't care who you are. You can fight me all day long. I will never back down off my hill of that. Die Hard is the best Christmas movie ever made.
Yeah. Yeah. What is that your favorite Bruce Willis movie, period? Die Hard? No. What's your favorite?
Fifth Element.
See, that's pretty solid. I think I go back and forth between Fifth Element and 12 Monkeys.
I'm just not a huge 12 Monkeys fan.
Really?
Yeah, I don't like those. I don't like those like cerebral crazy house type movies. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I really love Jack Nicholson, but I really, really hate One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Oh, it's a great movie.
Because
the book's a lot better, but I mean, it's a great movie. Yeah.
Well, one of my like personal life.
But he's better in a lot of the other movies,
Yeah, I mean, going back to Michael Keaton, Jack Nicholson as Joker. I mean, Jack Nicholson and everything he's ever done. He's just so amazing. But these like cerebral type movies where it's like very rooted in real life and there's this like cracking of mentality and memory. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where it's like that's a real thing that happens to people. And then with One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, he had the option to get away, but then he didn't, and then they lobotomized him.
Yeah.
That's the kind of real life rooted terror that my brain just
can't do.
Handle. Yeah. Because like one of my biggest fears is like getting dementia.
Sure. Yeah, I can understand.
Like I have an unreasonable fear of forgetting because I have an unreasonable fear of like this idea of continuity.
Okay. Yeah. I can
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so like movies like that, I kind of can't deal with. And so like I watched 12 Monkeys once, but I was just like, I can't deal with this. And
did you ever watch Memento?
Yeah.
How'd that go?
I didn't like it.
Yeah, I can't imagine that you would.
No,
I can't imagine that you would
like it. And like even, this is going to sound so silly, but like even 50 First Dates, I have a hard time with that. I have a hard time with that movie because Drew Barrymore's character forgets every night.
Oh,
and that 10-second
Adam Sandler, Drew Barrymore. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And then the 10-second
the boats and they're in Hawaii or whatever. Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, she gets in like a car accident and can't remember anything.
That's right.
So every day she goes to sleep, she wakes up and she still thinks it's like 1994.
Don't they have a kid at the end and like it's all bizarre and they're on a boat and he's like, hey, every morning, like.
Yeah, she has a videotape she has to watch.
That's
like
weird.
reminder. Yeah.
That's weird because she has like a kid at that point that they had years ago. And
yeah. And they're on like a boat in Alaska. Yeah. And there's like this other character, 10-second Tom, who every 10 seconds he can't remember anything. So he's always like, hi, I'm Tom.
Like Dory.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
but
crazy.
It's like I think about that kind of stuff and I'm just like, that is just like mind bending and heartbreaking to me because like there's a person here in North Carolina and I'll have to find the information about it. But basically there's a girl who's in high school and she was a competitive track runner athlete.
Yeah.
And during a track event, she and another runner collided. Ooh. And the other runner was totally fine. And this girl developed some kind of very abnormal brain damage where now she can't remember anything. Oh. And I don't remember what the time frame is for when she forgets. But
she can't like develop new memories.
Yeah.
That's really rare, but it happens and that's horrible, man.
Yeah. And like that kind of thing like is just like it's like terror inducing to me. It's so scary. And to me it's like so sad.
I used to work with these kids who had a this like life limiting disorder called Sanfilippo syndrome, and it's a type of MPS, which is a thing called mucopolysaccharidosis, which is a really not fun disease for kids. And
I think you've told me a little bit.
Yeah, so Sanfilippo is a type that some people have called it like childhood Alzheimer's, where these kids have basically like they're 8 years old and they like develop the 1,000-yard stare and can't like hold on to these memories and thoughts because the way it attacks their brain.
Yeah.
It's just terrifying. Like I used to see these kids and hang out with them all the time and it was just scary stuff.
Yeah, because I think you told me there's like a spectrum of this type of disease. And basically you're somewhere on the gamut of your body completely fails but your brain is fine, or your brain totally fails but your body's fine.
Yep. Yeah. Basically the whole run of it. Yeah.
And both of those things are just so scary to me.
There's no good part of being on it at all. You know, it's really tough stuff.
Like I feel like I have a hard time being fairly normal. Like I have a hard time imagining
just in general.
What it would be like to have like a life debilitating disorder, or you know what I mean? Like,
well, like you were saying, the idea of having, you know, something like Alzheimer's where you have like memory issues, it's very scary. It's a very scary thing because it affects your day-to-day operations essentially, you know?
Yeah. And like there's lots of stuff that can happen to people just on like a normal circumstance that can cause problems like PTSD, anxiety, depression, chronic pain can cause really weird side effects in your brain.
Oh yeah.
And there's all kind of stuff that can happen that can kind of just throughout your life can kind of like break your grasp with reality, break your grasp with time, with continuity, with memory retention.
It's a scary thing.
Yeah, it's all very scary. And like it, you know, if you've never experienced something like that, it's hard to kind of quantify for you. But like, you know, just imagine not being sure. You know what I mean about anything that you're experiencing, and that's kind of like where it kind of goes. But anyway, let's get into. We kind of ran off on a little tangent there, but let's get into this celebrity worship thing. So, like I normally ask, where do we start?
So let's basically start. I don't know, like 5,000 years ago.
Okay.
I guess as good a place as
Are we starting with the pharaohs?
Yeah, exactly.
Jesus and stuff.
Well, I mean, not Jesus yet, but like the pharaohs.
Jesus would be 2021 years ago.
Yeah, theoretically. And so essentially, so in ancient Egypt, the pharaohs were basically gods on earth who were worshipped directly. So people would gather around them, and they thought that pharaohs were direct representations of gods, but on earth.
They were Egyptian Kanye.
Yes. Minus the good albums. And
that's debatable.
so when pharaohs died, what they thought was essentially the pharaoh would become a god. So, you know, Bob, who's the pharaoh.
Bob the pharaoh
drops dead. They stick him in a hole in the ground with all of his worldly possessions.
Well, don't they mummify him and then put him in a tomb?
Oh yeah. They hook his brain out through his nose.
They grab like 9 million slaves to build a giant.
Yeah, and then also
pyramid.
bury a bunch of those slaves alive with the guy, because he needs servants in the future.
A giant brick fell on top of Billy Bob the slave. I guess he's just going to be buried with Bob the Pharaoh.
Yeah, like they don't really 100% know like if they told these guys that or like what the situation was. And like from the look of how it all operated back then, it was probably like, hey, just go down in here and wait, and you'll be reborn with the Pharaoh as his direct right-hand man. And so they would just go into the tomb and starve to death.
We're not saying construction workers killed on the job. We're saying they would like lock people into the tomb and just be like, well, our Pharaoh's going to need servants in the afterlife. So,
and it didn't seem like...
there you go.
Yeah, and it wasn't so much like hey, can you run in there and grab that? And then they shut the door really fast. It was more like you're gonna have afterlife eternal of awesomeness if you just go sit there and starve to death with this dead body.
Oh, that sounds horrible.
So I mean, could you
imagine yourself with no education, poor as fuck, a slave, having worked your whole life, and then they're like, when you go into the afterlife, it's gonna be super sick if you starve to death in this tomb.
Well, and the way it all worked, they were probably into it. You know, they were probably like, oh,
probably. Okay. They probably were like, I'm not going to say brainwashed, but they believed that.
It wasn't brainwashed. It was just the way their system was at the time, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At the time, the Egyptians worshipped hundreds of different gods. Basically kind of like how we are with all these different celebrities, they had hundreds of gods, and each of the
Egyptian rainbow.
Right. They all had their own little jobs. You know, some of them made rainbows, some of them made boats, whatever. They did their thing. It's so evident of how much they worshipped all these different gods and all these different things that the guy who's commonly referred to as the worst pharaoh of all time was this guy named Akhenaten, who spent his time as pharaoh trying to basically convert all the Egyptians over to monotheism and force them all to worship Aten, which is a personification of the actual disk of the sun. That circle of the sun, that's Aten, and that's the dude we're going to worship from now on. F these hundreds of other gods that you've been worshiping. We just want to do that guy. And so collectively, Egypt was like, F this guy.
Negative.
Yeah. They're not sure if he was immediately murdered, but
he was probably pretty quickly fucked.
Yeah. But I mean, he wasn't buried in any sort of pharaoh way, even though he was a pharaoh. They basically found him in a shallow ditch. And all of his ideas were quickly struck down. Like,
so how did they know that he wasn't Billy Bob the slave?
Well, so there was basically like one little blip in the hieroglyphic records that was just kind of like,
we buried jackass over here.
Right, exactly. Like, listen, we screwed up and we're not going to screw up again. And here's the reason, you know, so.
The Egyptian Illuminati decided they're not going to fuck up and elect dipshits like this guy again.
Right, exactly. They probably like put a golden ass on his ass and then stuck him in a ditch or something, you know. So.
Stuck him in a dick.
So I'm just going to jump right into like the monarchy, like royalty.
Okay.
And so much like Egyptians, for a big chunk of history, the rulers of Britain were basically the kings and the queens of those times.
Are we skipping over like ancient Greece and Rome, Italy and stuff like that?
Basically, because a lot of those were like monotheistic religions and stuff. So I'm illustrating celebrity, you know.
Okay.
With monarchy, before celebrities really emerged in the 1700s, people followed along closely with marriages, babies, and all of that stuff for monarchy. So there was, yes, the king and queen, but then there were dukes, duchesses, dipshits in charge of local like areas.
So for you plebes out there, if you have watched the recent explosion of a show that has just dominated Netflix over the last like couple of months, Bridgerton.
Oh yeah, that one.
Imagine that, but actually real.
And what's the other one? The Crown. That's a big one.
The Crown.
Yeah.
The other one that I like to think of is Versailles. If you've ever watched that show. Because that whole situation in France with Louis XIV when they were building Versailles, like that whole situation of like them being like basically taking all the money from the whole country and living in this giant palace in Versailles and basically like doing drugs, fucking each other and bowing down to the king. That was like it. That shit 100% real.
You know, it's fair. If my wife and I went to Paris and we were like, oh my God, let's go down to Versailles.
Oh, fuck shit.
And we're like, this is going to be awesome. Let's just check it out and see how crazy it is.
You can save yourself a bunch of money by going to Biltmore House and then just imagining it was like
well, we were already
10 times bigger.
So, so we go to get on the metro and we're going to go to Versailles, and it's all closed because Kanye is marrying a Kardashian.
Oh my God.
So essentially, like, the whole history of Versailles was just repeated, but with Kanye in place instead of Prince. You know?
And
I was just like,
so ludicrous.
I was like, I guess this makes sense. So, and that was the thing where, like,
actually
I don't know,
does kind of make sense.
Yeah,
where you go to see Versailles and you can't because another celebrity god is there getting married to another celebrity god.
Right,
just like,
and that was the thing that hit the news where, like, Will Smith's kid dressed up in an all white Batman costume to go to the wedding. I don't know if you saw this, but
I don't think
super
I
bizarre.
saw that.
He put on an all white Batman costume to go to Kanye's wedding.
Wasn't there somebody recently who dressed up in an all brown Batman costume? Who was that?
God, I hope so. I don't know.
There was. It went around the internet for a while.
We'll look at it.
I'll find it. I'm gonna make myself a note to look up the brown Batman costume because this shit was ridiculous.
So monarchy was such like a goofy thing, and like it was everywhere. I mean, it still is. I mean, we still have a queen out there.
Yeah,
you know?
She don't do anything, but you know,
not really. Yeah,
the queen now is the same queen as the queen from The Crown. Just in case any of y'all out there don't know that.
Yeah,
young queen.
Yeah, same one
is now current day old queen.
Yeah,
just so y'all know.
She old now. So
she a boss now, but she old.
So way back, like pre and during Renaissance and stuff, there was the kings established this thing called prima nocta. Do you know what that is?
No.
So
I haven't heard that one.
Okay, so prima nocta is a thing where basically the king of the land has the right to deflower any virgin on her wedding night.
Okay, yes. Okay.
Braveheart? Is this Braveheart?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I sometimes know that a thing exists, but I don't know the technical term.
No worries.
So if you said, do you remember that scene from Braveheart where the king came down and was like, hey, Mel Gibson, I'm going to bang your wife? I would have been like, yes.
Yeah.
I do know. And then you were like, did you know that's called prima nocta?
Right.
I'd be like, nope, sure don't.
Right. So, yeah, exactly. So that's the name of it. So,
okay.
There's some argument whether or not it actually existed. Well, no.
I feel like that seems like a thing that probably definitely could have existed.
It definitely existed. The argument is whether or not kings took advantage of it. There's no actual written evidence that I've seen digging into this a little bit where kings jumped in and were like, let me bang that virgin.
Well, because ask yourself this question.
Yeah.
You are the king of an entire country.
Right.
You're worshipped as a
god.
Yeah. Yes. Are you going to take time out of your day?
It seems like a lot.
To bang a virgin commoner?
It seems like a lot.
Or are you going to wait for like a noble virgin and then make her your concubine? That seems way more likely to me.
Seems like a better expenditure of time and effort,
Yeah, because like I think about the Man in the Iron Mask movie with Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yeah.
That's a conspiracy that's pretty cool that we could talk about at some point. But like, I mean, if you're that king, are you gonna be?
Seems like he's busy.
Are you gonna be banging are you just gonna be banging a random commoner?
And like every wedding, you have to go and I don't know. It seems like a lot.
I don't have time today to be doing any king stuff because there's been 400 weddings today and I have so many
in Scotland alone
to slay.
I have to go to Scotland.
Yeah. Plus it's like, and I don't mean to be gross, but like think about
it's a lot.
Virgin sexy time.
It's
It's not awesome.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's just not great.
The whole experience.
So it's like, can you really imagine these people wasting their time doing virgin sexy time that much?
Yeah.
It's not that awesome.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If anything, it's not awesome because what you really want is some girl to treat you bad and choke you. and that's not going to be some random virgin commenter. You know what I mean? Like it seems a little illogical. To me, you know?
I mean,
if you
obviously
actually
it's
want to
like it's like an establishment of dominance.
Sure.
So the idea of the law being there is probably more important than any of it actually happening.
I could see them doing it if it was like an important person.
Sure. Like I have to come. Okay. I got to leave my castle and take care of this and establish my dominance in this area.
Yeah. Like, problem douche is getting married. I guess I need to go down there and bang his wife to show him who's number one.
Right.
You know what I mean? I could see that.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course.
I wouldn't see him taking advantage of it on a mass scale.
Yeah. Just another
or like in Braveheart.
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense to me.
Well,
Why would
I think it could be argued that Braveheart was problem douche number one, like you were saying. I think that was the point of that that it was like an uprising. He was a problem.
Yeah, I guess I would need to look back at like the timeline because was William Wallace really a problem at the time that he was getting married?
Yeah,
or
did
was he a problem
one?
later?
Yeah.
Either because that was at the same, because William Wallace was about the same time as
and did that even happen? Like that's a big question too.
Right. Yeah. Did that even happen?
So anyways, the prima nocta thing, like that there was enough thought that these kings and queens were important enough that there was these laws established that they imposed enough into like the life of their quote unquote fans, like followers, subjects, you know. And then when you follow the path of monarchy, it essentially came up until, you know, the late 90s with Princess Diana, where you see the monarchy transfer into something like influencers, you know, basically. And her death was one of those first like kind of internet moments where everybody stopped and looked at it. And that was this big transfer moment where people started realizing that these people were celebrities, and we looked back at it, you know. So we're back to the rise of kind of modern celebrities. And you know, it kind of really started with movie theaters. Okay. So basically, if you go back to 1500s, 1600s, the only time anybody ever saw an image of someone larger themselves was in a very large painting. You know, that was the only, you know, kind of way you could do that.
Sure.
So you would see these gigantic Renaissance paintings, but, you know, there were like 5 of those, you know, and you could only see them in gigantic castles or like these very specific places.
Sure.
So the average person didn't have access to that. So what the average person, they never had access to.
I mean, they had access to like plays and stuff.
Right.
If we're thinking about like Rose Theater, Shakespeare.
Sure, but you go to the Rose Theater and you see a person your exact same size standing 30 feet away from you. So there's no larger than life experience there. That didn't happen until like the 1900s when people started going to movie theaters and they started seeing, you know,
silver screen
30-foot recreations of their own selves. I mean, not themselves, but they see other people, actors and stuff, 30 feet tall in front of them. And at the time,
they're quote unquote larger than life.
Yeah. And that's like a crazy thing because like the last time people saw something bigger themselves was like gods or like giants or something. So it's like this weird thing your brain has.
Or if you've ever seen an elephant.
Well, yeah. But if you saw an elephant the size of a human, or a human the size of an elephant, it'd be very weird.
No, I mean, I'm saying if you saw something larger than you.
Oh, well, yeah.
You know what I mean? So I feel like in the human experience, seeing a thing bigger than yourself.
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah, it's like, but now it's like we have like, the only things we would ever see bigger than us would be like mountains, castles,
right,
giant animals.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
But now all of a sudden there's experience of you see a person, but like 20 times larger than you.
Yeah.
Projected on a giant screen.
Like the IMAX.
Oh shit! And then all of a sudden there's IMAX.
Yeah, and then
it takes up your entire. I hate
all of your eyeball.
I hate IMAX.
Yeah, it's a lot. So people saw these celebrities larger than life, and one of the key moments that started really changing things was that it wasn't just seeing a celebrity big; it was seeing them as characters. You see this actor or actress who is not themselves. They're acting like this character that you can interact with and fall in love with and you know, incorporate into yourself as something to sympathize with.
Right.
So it's this kind of false reality that they didn't see a lot of before, because not everybody was going to plays. You know, you didn't have access to that.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Yeah. And so like at the time that movie film was really becoming big, I mean, at the same time it was like silent movies were first, but they would do newsreels with audio. And so like there's a lot of war happening at that time. So it's like you'd go see a silent film, but then they'd play a newsreel.
Right.
And it would be, and so not only are you seeing these people who were not themselves playing characters very large, you're seeing wartime video.
Yeah.
Huge. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah.
You see these like, you know, actors and actresses playing characters and like all this stuff happening bigger in your eyeballs. And then we transition through the 1900s into like the 50s and 60s, and you get stuff like Elvis and the Beatles. And these are people who are, again, larger than life, and you see them on movie screens and you see them on TV and you see them all over the place.
Yeah. And I feel like Elvis is a good one because like he started out as a musician and he was like a barrier breaker.
Absolutely.
As a musician. But then all of a sudden he was this movie star.
Yep.
You know, and so you have this like, you know, there's this person who's already, you know, breaking barriers as a musician, and like, you know, parents are out here being like, oh my God, his hip shaking is the devil, and children are going to fornicate. And he's like this thing that you shouldn't listen to and shouldn't have, and like all that stuff. And then all of a sudden he's this like huge movie star. And not only is he's this thing you can't have from a music standpoint, now he's 30 feet tall on the silver screen.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
And I mean, it even like, it goes beyond that, because like, you know, Elvis has this like background story of like he was in the military and he did all these crazy things. And then on top of that, like he has these skills that you can't replicate. Like he's an amazing singer and he plays guitar really well. And, you know,
and he dances well.
And he dances crazy, and his hips draw all the ladies.
And then he started doing that Vegas show thing.
And it's like, and you look at them and the Beatles, and together they're like in all these exotic places that you're never going to be. And you see all
like
this
Beach
stuff.
Boys and stuff is all at the same time. It's
and
like,
they're all over the place. And then like, even when they like die, it's weird. Like it's crazy and different. Like look at John Lennon. He was like assassinated. Like how often does that happen? That's not a huge public thing. Like, and Elvis died on the toilet. Like who does that?
Well,
like,
there's this even theory out there that Elvis didn't die.
Right. He's still alive. He's still out there, you know?
Yeah. It's like
something like 8% of Americans
not dead.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like 8%. I think it's like 8% of Americans think
lives
Elvis
in Chile.
is alive. 14% think Tupac's alive. It's like crazy.
Yeah. Tupac's not dead. He lives in Chile or whatever.
Yeah. He's out there, you know? So you have
he's in
like
Wit Pro.
Yeah. So like from Elvis and like the Beatles, and then like, you know, you have all like the 70s, the 80s, it moves into like pop stars of the 80s and 90s, like people like New Kids on the Block and like Nirvana and all these like, you know, crazy people.
Yeah, the big like blockbuster type.
So you have these like gigantic, larger than life characters doing all this stuff. And this is all still like pre-internet. So like people are limited with how they can interact with these, you know, quote unquote characters. Pre-internet, they're out there, just all they can see them is magazines, and when they show up on TV being aired at special times. They can't just go out. It's not like they can just go to YouTube and be like Festival with Freddie Mercury, you know, so it's not out there. This creates this like scarcity of personality, scarcity of availability, where they're only able to kind of be with them in a limited way. And then outside of music, you had the kind of 80s and 90s supermodels, you know, Cindy Crawford and like the big five, like Christy Turlington, Linda Evangelista, and Naomi Campbell, Claudia Schiffer.
Yeah.
You know, they were like
Sports Illustrated models,
like
Victoria's Secrets models.
Yeah, they
like
called them the
that kind
big
of
five.
stuff.
But not just them, like all these huge models that pretty much they literally destroyed like every young girl's sense of self-worth throughout the 80s and 90s.
Well, even to today.
Even today. We'll get into that a little bit. But yeah, for sure. I mean, we'll get into that a lot. But like, you know, throughout the 80s and 90s, because the only time you saw these, and I'm going to call them characters, like these 90s supermodels, the only time you saw these characters was when they were 100% fully prepared and they were in full makeup, posing, And that was the only time you saw them to interact with them because they didn't have Instagram. They didn't have live video. They didn't have all these different ways to interact with their audience. You literally saw them in like Pepsi commercials and the cover of Sports Illustrated.
Yeah. I mean, the only time you see them is in the best shape of their life. Yeah. Fully made up, wardrobe done, makeup done, like all the way out the best that they'll ever look ever.
Yep.
And then you're over here being like, I wish I could look like that.
Right. And like that was the start of like photo retouching. Like, when they started really
Photoshop.
Yeah, exactly. Like when they started really digging into that stuff. The difference between then and now is that now all of these consumers can basically come in, and nowadays you just go onto YouTube, you go to Google, you can look for whatever you want. So like if you want to interact with Billie Eilish, you go to her Twitter account. I mean, bad example. I don't know if she has a Twitter account or whatnot, but you can go to Twitter.
I don't know a single thing about her. So
so I mean, you can go to Twitter and be like, "Hey, I just heard your song. It's cool." And like, there's a chance she could respond to you. That's like a thing that could happen. I've tweeted at authors I like and like have started conversations with them. So
I always get really surprised when somebody like quote unquote big replies to me over the internet.
Yeah.
There's a particular guitarist that I follow, Andrew Baina. He's one of the guitarists from this death metal band, doomcore band called Carcosa that I really like.
Okay.
I mean, this dude has like 40,000 Instagram followers. And he replies to my messages.
Nice.
Not every once in a while, but frequently.
Yeah.
I message asking him questions, commenting on videos and stuff like that. And he talks back to me.
That's cool.
And I think it's really cool.
That's really cool. Yeah. I mean, that's like one of the few positive sides of all of this, One of the biggest problems and like, just overall why it's bad for quote unquote fans, one of the things is parasocial relationships. And so there's this guy, Dr. Mark Griffiths from Nottingham Trent University, who he's a specialist in fandom and celebrity worship, which I didn't know was like a thing you could specialize in on an academic level, but there you go. So he had this to say about the transition to modern celebrity from past celebrity and how influencers work today. He said, quote, "I think social media is certainly one influence among a number of others. The rise of mass media means that we've had what we call parasocial relationships with famous people. That means we feel as if we know them even though we've never met them. We know the intricacies of their whole lives. We read about them in magazines, see their posts on social media, watch documentaries about them. People can develop emotional relationships with celebrities as a result." So what does he have to say about this effect on young people? "We know that young people are not as engaged with politics, so they just don't trust politicians, and it's linked to the rise of social media. Celebrities have more pull and more followers than somebody like Theresa May will ever have. I'm not in a position to say whether people should be more interested in X or Y. Certain things in life make people feel good. As humans, we seek out things that get us high, aroused, excited, or we seek out such things which tranquilize and numb us. Celebrities tend to give us that thrill." So he's basically saying young people are disengaging from things like politics and following celebrities because it gives more of a thrill, which, is obvious if you step back and look at it.
Right. And I think we talked about this a little bit before where we're like, the celebrity opinion has such a high weight on the typical person where they can come out and be like, support this charity and not this charity, or support this political view and not this political view,
right?
And then
which can be good or bad sometimes.
Yeah.
And recently there was a study of 437 Hungarian adolescents, and they found
that's not like a random group of people.
Yeah, just like grab 437 people from Hungary.
Hungarians.
So a university there did this study where they essentially found people that had high levels of celebrity worship, and they found that there was like this through line, and almost all of them experienced and had serious problems with self-image issues. Clearly, just like body image issues and all these other things just from being engaged with celebrities.
Yeah.
And they also found that a lot of those same people, it overlapped, that they had problematic internet use, maladaptive daydreaming. Basically, they're daydreaming so much that it screws up their own life, and a desire to be famous. A couple of years ago, BBC did a huge kind of survey of young kids in the area, and they found 87% wanted to be YouTube influencers and didn't have secondary job choices. That was what they wanted.
Oh, wow.
There was no backup plan,
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that's a very difficult thing to be. I mean,
Yeah.
What's his name? Mr. Beast makes videos joking basically just
Yeah.
about them going around Twitch, finding people with no viewers.
Yeah,
You know
exactly.
what I mean? And like that's 99% of Twitch.
Yeah. I mean, there's a link, I forgot what it is, but you can go and you can log on to it'll log you into Twitch to somebody who currently has 0 views.
Yeah.
It's called like Zero View or something like that. It's just zeroview.com or something. It just bounces you into it.
Okay.
And I thought it was fascinating. One day I jumped in there and I jumped from people, and probably 80% of the ones, as soon as I clicked on it, they were instantly like, "Hey, how'd you find my name?" Like they were just like there waiting for me,
Yeah.
And I'm nobody. Like I just pop in and they're just like, "Hey, hello viewer." It's like,
yeah,
okay.
it's like they're a little too like, oh fuck, somebody's watching me.
Yeah, exactly. And so what this Hungarian study found was that people that are taking part in this like celebrity worship or paying too much attention to celebrities in general, they tend to have other issues and have compulsive behavior, and it kind of all compounds. And so it just builds up. So like they have all these anxiety issues, all these other problems, and body image issues from seeing unrealistic depictions of a human body. And and that's why it's bad for the people who are the viewers, and then we flip the script onto the celebrities.
Well, let me ask you a question real quick before we get to the celebrities.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Are you the kind of person who has like star shock or whatever? You know what I mean?
What do you mean?
Where it's basically like if you ever actually meet a celebrity, you get all like weird and awkward and don't act like yourself and be all like,
no, I mean, I worked
weird
in
and shit.
I worked in the entertainment industry. So like, I mean, I worked in an office where people were like Slash and Enrique Iglesias and,
would like just show up.
They would just come in because like that's their talent managers worked there.
Okay.
So I would be in the office and then, like making a cup of coffee, and they would come up and ask me how to show them how to get a cup of coffee, so
yeah.
And in Los Angeles you get this like
jadedness
vibe, jaded, yeah, exactly, where it's
there's
like
celebs everywhere.
Yeah, like the first week my wife and I moved to Los Angeles, we went to this little Lebanese place, and the only other person in the Lebanese place was Rory from Gilmore Girls, Alexis Bledel. She was the only other person in the place. So it was like we're just kind of.
And y'all didn't do the Southern thing and was like, "Do you want to like?"
No, it was like we were just like, "Hey, there's that person," and that's that.
And you just leave them alone. I feel like most of them want to just be left alone.
100%. That's exactly what they want. And then I worked in West Hollywood where like next to my office was the workout place for celebrities. And so there was a juice stand right next door. So I would go in there and like every day it was like a different celebrity and they're getting juice. And like the Starbucks place across the street was just like an endless stream of celebrities, so
okay.
You get kind of used to it. And it's just, I mean, actually at some points it becomes just kind of annoying because like there's a lot of tourists around and you're like just trying to get your life done and out of the way, and like all these other people are
tourists in the
falling
way
all over so it's like you do get jaded by it pretty quickly. And like once you see a couple people who are quote unquote famous, it's just kind of like eye roll. It's like, oh yeah, whatever.
Unless I saw Julia Roberts.
Well, yeah. I mean, she is the pride of.
I mean, I would like tackle her.
She is a pretty woman.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't really get, starstruck.
Yeah.
Is what they call it. I don't really get starstruck. I've met.
Some people do, some people don't.
Yeah. I mean, I've never really met any actors or anything like that, but I've met a bunch of musicians.
Yeah.
And a bunch of like famous musicians. And like every time I meet one, I'm always just like, they're always like, fuck, I just don't want this person to act like I'm famous. You know what I mean? They just 100%. Just want you to be chill. Or like, they're just people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I feel like and this is a good tie into like how it affects them is like, they just don't want people over here like drooling over them and like acting like they're gods essentially or whatever. Like I met Travis Barker in high school and I was just like, let me just shake the hands with the dude, say hi, have a conversation, let the guy go. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I don't need to be over here being like, oh my God, I love Blink-182 so much. You're my favorite band. I can't wait. I'm going to your concert tonight. I can't wait to do You know what I mean? Like they don't want that or need that. And like I've met a bunch of what I would consider famous musicians because I follow them.
Right.
You know what I mean? But like they're not famous in the like Metallica terms of or Beatles terms of famous or whatever. And when I do meet them, I like it's the same thing. I'm always just like, you know, they just want to like hang out and like be normal. And I like to me it's like it's better to just be like, hey man, can I like buy you a beer? You want to chill? And they're always just like, yeah. But if you walk up to him and you're like, oh my God, you're my favorite musician. Oh, I'm freaking out. You know, like they hate that shit. You know?
And it probably helped that I was a music journalist for years before I moved to Los Angeles, you know, so I was interviewing like
you were
kind of
used to this whole starstruck thing.
Well, I was interviewing like band members and musicians for years before I even like went out to Los Angeles. And like, if you're working for a magazine and you have to call and interview somebody, you can't just be like, oh my God, you're the best. Like, you have to have like, okay, on your third album, you did this. And like, you know, you have to like, be prepared for that. So it's
you have like this like journalistic integrity thing going on.
Oh, because you'll never get, because their PR company is on the phone too, listening to you. And if you're like starstruck, they're just going to put your name on a list and you're not going to get interviews anymore.
Yeah, they're just going to hang up on you and then put you on the interview blacklist.
Oh, yeah, 100%. You know, so
yeah, but if you're chill,
you have you have to pretend like you're chill. So like it just
even if you're freaking out.
Yeah. And Devin's, you know, my wife's the same way. She was a journalist for years before I was, and then we were out now. Same thing. So it's like, it's interesting. It's, you know, you just kind of build up this thing. So, and that's, I think the fact that, yes, celebrities just want to be left alone essentially. And like just want you to be a normal human being when you interact with them. Like you don't want to walk up to them and be like, can I sniff your eye? You know, and like clearly, like they don't want that. How does your nose feel in my mouth? You know, you don't want to like be that person. So like, I have a couple of examples of like why it's really bad for celebrities, this whole situation.
Okay.
And so the first is a friend of the podcast, Taylor Swift.
Oh, is she really?
Sure, why not?
Okay.
And so
I hope Taylor Swift listens to this. Like that'd be cool. Not really. I mean, I don't even really listen to her music, but that'd be cool if she did. Like, that'd be rad.
I'd be into it. So Taylor Swift had this apparently human garbage of a person named Frank Edward Hoover. They always have three names, like the creepy folks. Frank Edward Hoover. He took being a completely aggressive fan to a whole new level in 2015 when he started sending Taylor Swift's dad disturbing letters promising to kill the entire family. Hoover referred to himself as the quote-unquote real son of God, and he called the Swifts the quote-unquote evil family of devils, and he wrote that this article is not a joke and is why God is going to burn them into the desert, something from TMZ he was referring to. And TMZ is quoting a 100-page indictment of when this dude got arrested.
Holy shit.
So you know if it's a 100-page indictment, he had a lot to say.
Yeah. This dude wrote like a full-on Ted Kaczynski manifesto about 100%. How he was going to like wear Taylor Swift's face as a mask.
Yeah. So
it puts the lotion on the skin. Jesus.
You know this guy like ran the official subreddit too, probably or something.
Oh my God. He was probably the president of like the Taylor Swift
I'm sure.
fan club.
So he got arrested in 2016 after following her Taylor Swift and her family from the concert venue to the airport where they were supposed to schedule a private plane. And he got to about 20 feet of the car before the singer's bodyguards, I guess they recognized him from lurking around.
Yeah.
And they grabbed him and started asking him questions. And he said that he was just there to take a photo of her. And then he led on that he was also possibly there to accompany her wherever she wanted to go. He ended up getting 10 years in prison after they found his manifesto.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. And so, I mean, that's just
forewarning.
Yeah. That's
don't do that.
Yeah. And that's just one dude who's following Taylor Swift around. I mean, there's another dude in federal prison right now who sent her emails and letters saying that he wanted to rape her and cut her apart as soon as he could get her by herself. And that's just another guy who's in prison. So
that's some like Marilyn Manson level shit.
Yeah.
Should we get into that? The stuff going on with Marilyn Manson right now? Or should we wait?
Maybe not. Maybe we should wait on that.
All right. Well, let's come back to the Marilyn Manson stuff because this shit's bonkers.
Yeah. So second example, Justin Bieber, another friend of the podcast.
God, I hope not.
So this other guy was arrested for plotting to kidnap and mutilate Justin Bieber because he refused to respond to his fan mail. Oof. This guy was interviewed while in prison, and it was added in the article. They didn't mention his name due to legalities, but they did mention that he had a large lifelike tattoo of Justin Bieber on his leg. And he told an interviewer from The Atlantic that if he was free, here's what he would do, quote unquote, put Bieber in a cage, rape him repeatedly, and put it on YouTube. He also was recorded as telling fellow inmates that he would pay upwards of $2,500 for one of Justin Bieber's testicles.
That seems undervalued. I mean,
yeah, I guess
I don't know.
so.
I mean, I don't know.
It depends on the value you put on celebrity, John.
Depends on the value you put on celebrity testicles, I guess. I don't know.
There's probably a whole black market celebrity testicle,
Probably.
So, I mean, those are just two, like literally I just Googled like worst celebrity stalking experiences and those were the top two and the list was literally endless. Like any celebrity you can name, they were on this list. I mean, like Ben Stiller and like people like you don't think of on a day-to-day basis. They were on this list with like horrible experiences of people wanting to like basically cut their eyeballs out just because they were famous,
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's scary.
Yeah, I mean, clearly the whole celebrity worship thing's not working out for the celebrities either, Yes, they're getting all this money, but every time they turn a corner, there's some dude lurking in a shadow with a knife ready to like mutilate them,
Yeah. I mean, I remember watching Paris Hilton's documentary earlier last year during COVID.
Yeah.
And her talking about, how horrible the paparazzi was and that her figuring out that she could sell pictures of herself for more than the paparazzi was making. Like,
yeah,
just imagine what that would do to you. You know what I mean? To have these like people with cameras following you around all the time because people are just like lusting after every little weird, goofy picture of you.
Right.
And then figuring out, I can hire somebody to take pictures of me and then sell them to the tabloids.
Yeah, leak them, do the same thing.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of celebrities figure that out,
Yeah. That shit just sounds mind-boggling to me.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, it's there's some celebrities that like they write profanity on their face and like do these weird things. I think you were talking about Marilyn Manson. I think he wrote like the F word on his face so that like Getty couldn't resell the images of him leaving a building once or something.
Oh, I hadn't heard that one. That's weird.
Yeah, so it's not a good mental state for anybody involved,
Right.
And the people doing the worshiping are having horrible mental issues with decline where their body image is shot. They get anxiety from it. They don't know how to interact on a day-to-day normal basis because they're like having maladaptive daydreaming where they're like not even able to interact with their day-to-day lives because they're overthinking what this celebrity might have to do. And then on the celebrity side, these people are basically having to hire bodyguards because people want to cut them into pieces and like, rape the other little parts. And it's just horrible for everyone,
Yeah.
And I don't know if there even is a solution. I don't think there is because there's so much money involved that I don't think anybody who's making a dollar off it is going to give up that situation,
Right. Yeah. And I mean, there's three, if we want to kind of take this in like a similar but different direction, but not run it out because I think we're getting close to the end of the show here, that I can kind of think about as like the other way we can think about how poorly this type of situation goes is that celebrities, because they're celebrities, can just get away with stuff.
Yeah.
And some of it's horrible. And the top three that I can kind of think about that are all in the similar realm are R. Kelly, Michael Jackson, and now Marilyn Manson.
Yeah.
That we're kind of finding out that, you know, if we think about, and I don't know the details about,
well, Bill Cosby, Harvey Weinstein. I mean, you know, there's a million of them. You know?
They go on, but like I know in fairly I don't know a ton about Michael Jackson's because I never really followed him, but I know in a fairly high amount of detail about, you know, R. Kelly and Marilyn Manson because they were fairly similar. Like right now, currently at the time we're recording this, there's a bunch of information coming out about Marilyn Manson having abused Evan Rachel Wood for years and years and years, and just how severe that abuse was and how he somehow was able to stay in the music industry, and people other than like suburban moms who were condemning him through all of these years didn't really care. And he just continued to make music, even though he was over here literally giving interviews to like Wired saying that he was like, he fantasizes about murdering her. He would call her up to 160 times a day while self-mutilating and, you know, trying to tell her that, you know, her leaving him or causing him pain was making him do this and all, you know, all this horrible, manipulative, abusive stuff.
Yeah.
And then for anybody who's watched like, you know, R. Kelly's documentary, I mean, how many years did it take?
Right.
And how many girls being abused and kidnapped and held hostage in his, you know, mansion, being starved and abused and stuff did it take for him to get, you know, to even have a single lawsuit stick against him, which I don't think a single one has stuck. Yeah. Yeah. And you know what I mean? But like, money because of their but because of the money and the celebrity status and stuff, these people walk while they're just doing this horrible stuff. And like, think about the mental state of the people this happens to, the mental state of the artist, and then the fact that there's this whole culture of people out there being like, oh, well, I mean, you know, R. Kelly, Marilyn Manson write great songs, so what do I care if they're if they're abusing people? Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like
it's like people like, oh, Polanski made great movies. You know, it's like it's bizarre. It's like it's just a weird situation all the way around. I mean, imagine if it was like Jim who manages the mechanic shop, like, oh man, he could really rebuild a carburetor. Too bad about raping all them women. You know, it's like
that dude be buried in,
of course,
so fast. Which I mean, you know, the psychology of rape is a whole other different thing to talk about. Yeah, you know, because that dude may not actually necessarily get strung up, but the right thing would be that person was. But you know, I mean, there's other stuff to consider there. But you know,
I think looking at the idea of, you know, capital C celebrity and all of that is wild because it just shows they're not getting off scot-free because they have problems, mental health. You know, you see every day, like, look at Britney Spears. She freaked out, shaved her head, and like ran away. You know,
the older I get, the more I understand shaved head Britney Spears.
Right.
Yeah. I think we all understand her now. Yeah. We didn't understand her at the time.
No, but we
sure
do
shit
now.
Do now.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah. I mean, run the gamut with it, you know, and it's, you know, we're talking about mental health. It's just there's not a happy situation for a lot of people. Like, you mentioned Harrison Ford earlier. Like, he's one of those only people that, like, you don't really see, like, you don't see stuff about Harrison Ford like ripping up the town or doing bad stuff, you know?
Right.
Because he carefully controls the output of what people find out, you know?
Yeah. I mean, you see him as being Han Solo, you see him as being in Indiana Jones, but you don't see the other stuff. I mean, in that same like Star Wars vein, I mean, if we want to talk about celebrities with mental health issues, I mean, Carrie Fisher.
Oh yeah,
you know, course, I mean, we see her as being Princess Leia. She was this young, beautiful, vibrant actress who did all this great stuff, but what you didn't see behind the scenes was the drug abuse, the mental health problems that she had, you know, the struggles that she had with it. And her daughter has really come out and tried over the years and tried to, you know, say like, you know, this is what happened to my mom through being famous. Yeah. You know, and it really wasn't good for her. It wasn't good for me. And it ended up in, you know, having just like such long reaching and severe side effects. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's a tough situation, and there's no real answers to it because there's just buckets and buckets of money involved. So, I mean, everybody's perfectly happy to sit and watch it keep going because everybody's making money off of it, you know?
Right. It's like you want to be famous, but do you really know what it means
Right.
to be famous in that way?
Yeah.
You know, like I wouldn't want people following me around. Like I'm happy having my secluded life.
I don't like my dog following me around.
Yeah. Every so often I turn around and be like,
what are you looking at me for?
Bro, why are you following me? And that's just my dog. Like I'm just like, what are you doing?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what the solution is. I know it's a big problem and I know it sucks.
I mean,
That's
I
about where
really
I'm at.
don't think that there is a solution. I think the same situation is going to continue to happen forever. It's just the way people are. There's musicians, there's artists, there's actors, there's actresses, there's whatever out there. And if there's somebody doing something better than what you're doing or doing something that makes money or something that people blow up, like, you know, that's going to just make you feel like you're not good enough and they're going to, you know, have mental side effects from becoming quote unquote larger than life. So,
yeah. And I mean, go all the way back to King Tut. You know, there was somebody willing to like walk into a chamber with him and starve to death, you know, and sit next to him as he died. Well, I mean, he was already dead, but like sit next to his dead body as they starved to death. You know, there were a dozen people willing to do that, you know? So
yeah,
it's been around forever. I don't think it's going anywhere. It sucks.
Yep. Yep. All right, guys. Well, thank you for joining us for another episode of Reluminati. We will talk to you again next week.
See you soon.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Brew Luminati. Our intro and outro music is written by Dungeness. Want to learn more about the topics we cover and who we are? Join us on Facebook and Instagram at Brew Luminati Podcast for behind-the-scenes content and updates. Do you have mystical powers of insight or just questions, suggestions, and feedback? Reach out to us at thebrewluminati@gmail.com. Are you ready to immerse yourself into the inner circle? Visit patreon.com/brewluminati podcast. For the same price as a cup of coffee or sandwich you won't remember, you know, because of mind control, you can join the Brew Luminati and lift the veil on the true mysteries of the universe. Your membership to the Conclave unlocks access to our secret Discord server, bonus Patreon-only content, behind-the-scenes talks, and much more. Every dollar spent not only helps us reveal the truths of the world, but also frees us to make the show better, weirder, and allows us to go deeper and deeper into the void while funding our next beer run. When we're not talking conspiracies and beer, we're passionate about saving the forgotten puppies and kitties of the world. 10% of every dollar you donate goes directly to the Best Friend Pet Adoption Agency. They are a local 501c3 all-breed, all-foster cat and dog rescue that will save the life of a pet who never had a chance. Keep an eye out because we'll be posting pictures of the lives our listeners save. For more information on Best Friend Pet Adoption, head over to bfpa.org. Join us again next week for another episode of Brew Luminati. We know you will, because again, mind control is real.